Okay, I'm going to do the translation on fasting, Gigushamuan, it's called. We had both our young men and our young women go through this fasting. First, I'm going to talk about the young men. It's usually when they were going through a voice change that they were given the option of going out in the woods for 4 days, and usually when you're out there, you go without food and water. And what the father would usually do, he'd put some ash in one hand, and in the other hand, he would put food, and he would offer it to that young man probably in the morning. And if he took the ash, it meant he was ready to fast. If he took the food, he wasn't ready to fast. So he was given the option. And if he took that ash, what he did with that after he got out in the woods was to rub that all over his face. So that's where that makadeke comes from. Makade is black. It's from the black of the ash. And what I wanted to talk about is the concept of fasting. Usually what it is, you're giving up something that you value, that you prize, and hoping in return those spirits and those manidug will take pity on you while you're out there for your 4 nights of fasting. It's much like in our ceremonies. Whenever we are asking for help from those spirits, we got to give something of ours and hoping in return they will help us. For example, food. We will put food. This is food that we could have fed our family or fed ourselves, but instead we give it up in the ceremony context, and that goes to those manidug. And then also money. When they talk for money, when people put money down for an offering, usually the man will say, this is, nowadays there's not much that we cannot do without money. We need it. But look at this individual that he brought this money in and decided to give it up to those manidug, to those spirits, rather than using it. So it's a way for him to be helped. In other words, we got to give of ourselves in order to receive. Same with the blankets. When they put blankets, they usually talk about, look at the time that that person sat there making those blankets and sewing when they could have been out doing other stuff, maybe fun stuff or whatever. Instead, they choose to sit there and do their sewing, and for those blankets they're offering up to those manidug and those spirits. So usually ask those spirits, those manidug, to look down favorably on that person. It's even like, sometimes I'll mention people come a great distance to a ceremony. Look at all the traveling that person did to get here. And you ask those manidug, to grant them their request. So it's the very same thing with fasting. You're giving up to something that's important to you, food and water. You're hoping in return that they give you something And it's during those 4 days and 4 nights out there in the wild. Usually, those Manidug will appear to that young man. They'll either have a dream or see him outright. And that's where a lot of our healers, our medicine men came from. These Manidug, these spirits would show up and tell the young man, I am here to help you. I will help you, doctor, and heal our people. And that's what that young man does from there on out. And here again, he's given a purpose, a direction in his life. And that's where a lot of our healers came from. And today, I don't see a lot of our medicine men, our medicine people haven't gone through this. It's just as if they instantly appear. It's the ones I consider real powerful, is the ones that have gone through this process. And for our young women, they are sent out to fast at the time that they go through that change that young girls go through when they become women. And the one that gave me all this information on this was my auntie, my Aunt Julie Shingleby. She was the one that was put out for 4 days and 4 nights, and she told me what she was told. But in a way, during the time that these young women are out there for those 4 nights, the old women would appear, the old ladies, and give them teachings, and share some teachings with them. One thing about our women, that is the most powerful time in their lives, is when they go through that change, that cycle change, or when they first fast during that year. And there's certain things that they couldn't do because of all of that power that they have with them during those times. For example, they were told not to step over sacred items or pipes, drums, feathers. If they did, they could nullify the power that exists in those sacred items. That's how powerful they are. They were told not to step over clothing, men's clothing, babies' clothing. They were also told that during that particular time of the month or during that year after they first fast, they need to use their own plate, spoon, and cup during that time. And that's not because they were dirty or viewed as inferior. It was because of that power that those women had at that time. So I can always remember his sister-in-law when she was over. She always had every so often a particular plate and a spoon, that cup that she used during that time. My auntie said that when she was given all the teachings, for example, all of those foods out there, all of those things we have been given as a people to eat, they just couldn't go out and pick a lot of those items because of that power they had in them. They could stunt and affect the growth of a lot of that stuff. So there are foods we were given as an Anishinaabe by the Manidug to eat, and that is the animals, like the rabbits and the deer, all of those animals, the fish, the wild rice, all those things that grow in the wild. Before these young women could eat any of that stuff after their fasting or during their fasting. They had to be spoon-fed that, and there had to be a tobacco offering made. And that's where they would hand that spoon to that woman 4 times. And on the 4th time, she would be able to eat that piece of meat, wild meat, or wild rice, or maybe those berries. And then from there on, she's able to pick them, to eat them. For example, we recently had a not so good rice crop, and a lot of our people are saying it's because our people no longer follow these teachings. That also applies to those that are grieving. Each community, some communities are taught different. Here in Mille Lacs, when they eat that fresh meat or that fresh fish that was caught after their relative passed on, they have to be spoon-fed, and it just goes right directly to them, and they eat it on the first time they're handed that spoon. In some places they do it 4 times, then finally. But anyway, what that all shows our respect too for all of those things we have been given to eat as a people. I always remind our people, don't challenge these teachings. They have been here for generation and generation. I wouldn't take the chance. They're also told not to handle little babies during that period. You could also stunt their growth. So it's another example where we were taught to respect a lot of those things we were given to eat as a people. There may be some teachings I may have forgotten. They were taught not to swim. During that year, the women were taught not to swim during that period. But can you imagine what an experience that must be to have those Monday Duga spirits show up to you when you're out there fasting, and they come up with a special message for you, and you're told what to do, and what a guiding force that must be for that young man, that young woman, when they're given that. It's like their whole future is almost laid out there, told what they're going to be doing. And it's critically important to our young ones today that they have direction in their lives and recognize that all of this is available through our Anishinaabe ways. It's been put there for us as a people. So it's another teaching ceremony that has to come back that can only be helpful to our young people. Especially we take a look at the drug use, the gang involvement, all of that happens on our communities. That's all I have to say about this one.